there is out there a deliberate undermining of mainstream media. There are the conspiracy theorists, there are the social media drivers who are trying to do everything they can to keep people in their little filter bubbles, to prevent people from actually agreeing on a common set of facts, the way, the CBC and CTV, when they were our only sources of news, used to project across the country at least a common understanding of things.
This is my video update on this February the 22nd. Let's talk about some news. And last night in Athens, this is where there was a big farmers' protest. They've pretty much cleared out all of the tractors and the trucks and everything, but there seems to be a mini protest taking place right now, which is with the honey and the honey manufacturers and the beekeepers, which is, from what I understand, it's a big industry here in Greece. Greeks make some of the best honey. We have some of the best honey in the world, and looks like they're out here protesting, but the streets are open for the most part in the main square here in Sudagma. So traffic is flowing, but there are a few trucks blocking some of the lanes. For the most part, everything has cleared out. There's some media around covering this smaller protest, but yesterday evening, late last night, the farmers were out here in force. Anyway, let's talk about some news and what is going on in the world today. Let's go for a walk. Talk about the pressure on Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House. CNN ran an article talking about how Mike Johnson is under an enormous amount of pressure. Fox News also ran an article talking about how Mike Johnson is under a gigantic amount of pressure, and the pressure is for the $61 billion to Project Ukraine, for Mike Johnson to put this $61 billion package up for a vote in the House. And both articles, they say that Mike Johnson is under pressure, or the pressure is mounting, because of Avdiivka, what happened in Avdiivka, and the fact that the fact that the Ukraine military ran out of ammunition, and that is why Avdiivka failed. This is according to CNN and Fox News. And the other reason why Mike Johnson is under a gigantic, enormous amount of pressure to put this package up for a vote in the House is because of, you guessed it, Alexei Navalny. So that is what Fox News and CNN are reporting. And one of the Senate GOP aides told Fox News, Ukrainians are literally running out of ammo and fleeing cities while Putin kills off his main rival in the Gulag. Now is not a good time to give the Russians a hand. So you can see the narrative right there. So there's a lot of talk in the collective West media about this American ballerina who has been put in prison, and she faces 20 years in a Russian prison, or a gulag, as Fox News puts it. And the narrative is that she was put in prison, or she has been arrested, detained, because she donated $51 to a Ukraine charity. That is the narrative going around, and I want to get into this story a little bit, because I think we have a whole lot of misinformation and a whole lot of information that we just don't know with regards to this developing story. But yes, this ballerina, 33-year-old ballerina, so I don't know if she's still, well, I know she's not like a professional ballerina. She actually works in a spa in Los Angeles. But ballerina, we'll call her a ballerina because that is the narrative that the collective West is spinning on this story. Her name is Ksenia Kavana. That's the name of her when she was married, but her maiden name is Ksenia Karelina. And she is a dual citizen, a dual U.S.-Russian citizen, or actually probably better to say she is a dual Russian-U.S. citizen because she was born in Russia, from what I understand, lived most of her life in Russia, and then she got married to an American citizen, and then she got her citizenship in 2021. So she's been a citizen of the United States for like 2-3 years. But and then she got divorced. So she's a dual citizen. Now, from my understanding, Russia doesn't recognize dual citizenship. So for Russia, under Russian law, and I could be wrong about this, but I believe I am correct. Under Russian law, she's considered a Russian citizen. That's it. There is no dual citizenship. But she travels to Russia once every year, from what I understand, to visit her family, her grandmother, her mother. And she's from the city or around the area of Yekaterinburg. Anyway, Media Zona, they broke this story. Media Zona, red flag right there, but they broke this story about the ballerina who has been arrested and faces 20 years in prison for donating $51 to a Ukrainian charity. That's the narrative. They broke this story. And the truth of the matter is that we don't know why the FSB really detained her. What was the amount of money that she has donated or collected? Because I have seen reports which claim that she was collecting funds and donating them to a Ukraine organization that was helping to equip soldiers. So, I mean, you know, Russia is in a conflict with Ukraine, and here you have a Russian citizen. Remember, in the eyes of Russia, there is no dual citizenship. She is Russian. Here you have a Russian citizen allegedly collecting, we don't know the amount. I think the $51 is kind of put in there for propaganda reasons. Actually, I'm certain that $51 was put in there for propaganda reasons. But we don't know what the exact amount is or how much money she was collecting. And the reports which say she was protesting in the U.S. and she was collecting money in the U.S. and in Russia. We don't know what that means. Could be $50, could be $5,000. I don't know. We don't know. The FSB has not given us any information as to what exactly her activities were. But we do know that she was protesting. From what I understand, she was protesting and she was collecting funds and giving them to a Ukraine charity, which was really, I don't know if you could say it was a charity. The Ukrainian side of things, they say it was for diapers and for clothes and stuff like that. But I've read reports which say that this was money being given to Ukraine in order to equip the soldiers in Ukraine. And for the Russians, that means that you're giving money to the Ukraine military, which is fighting a conflict with your military. So that's what we know. I think that the reports about this ballerina, everything else that they're talking about, Ksenia Karelina, the ballerina, I think a lot of it is just propaganda, and we shouldn't jump to any conclusions as to what is happening here. Maybe the FSB, maybe they have a bone to pick with this ballerina or to make an example of her. I don't know why, but maybe they feel like they have to make an example of a ballerina. Maybe there's some people in the FSB that don't like ballet, though. I don't know, you're talking about Russia, and Russia is like the capital of ballet. But anyway, I don't know. I really don't know what's going on here, but maybe they did want to make an example of her, or maybe, just maybe, we're being fed a whole lot of propaganda at a time when we've got $61 billion on the line. Maybe, just maybe, that's what's going on. Let me read you a quote from the organization that the money was donated to or given to in Ukraine from Ksenia, and this is coming from the Associated Press. They said that Razom, which I guess is this organization, it's called Razom for Ukraine, that's what this money went to, a US-based nonprofit that says it provides medical kits and disaster relief for those affected by Russia's invasion of the country. We're talking about diapers and formula. That's what she was collecting money for. That's what one of the officials at Razom for Ukraine said. We're not talking about money for weapons. That's a direct quote. Razom calls, and this is what the person at Razom told the Associated Press, this charity. Razom calls on the U.S. government to continue to do everything in its power to demand that President Putin release all those unjustly detained by Russia and to hold Russia's political and military leadership accountable for their unprovoked invasion for Ukraine. That's what Dora Chomiak said, who is representing this Ukrainian charity, which is US-based, a US-based nonprofit. But it gives money over to Ukraine. They claim it's for diapers and formula and medical kits. An interesting statement, when you read that statement. This charity says that they don't want to name Ksenia. They don't want to say that Ksenia donated this money because it goes against their policy. They don't disclose the private information of those who have donated to this charity. But they say that they're calling on the U.S. government to demand that Putin release all those unjustly imprisoned in Russia. It's an interesting comment, isn't it? It's a very interesting comment for this charity to make. Very general, a very general propagandesque, if that's even a word, type of comment to make. You know, we demand that Putin release all of those unjustly imprisoned. And they were asked by the Associated Press to comment about the ballerina Ksenia, and that was their response. To be fair, they did say that they don't want to disclose the name of people who have donated to their charity, so maybe that's why they came out with this statement. But a very odd statement. This whole thing, I don't know. This is a red flag. This is a red flag in my opinion. This is just a hunch that I have, but you know, you got to look at the timing of everything that is going on with the demonization of Russia and of Putin at a time when you do have 61 billion USD on the line for Project Ukraine. And actually, I think this is the Russian Orthodox Church in Athens, if I'm not mistaken. One sec. I think this is the Russian Orthodox Church. Yeah. Yes, it is. So, look at the timing of everything that's going on. You had the Tucker interview with Putin, right? That interview took place, 1 billion views or impressions, however you want to call them. A huge PR and media win for Putin and for Russia. That's what it was. Let's call it as it is. It was a big media win for Putin and for Russia, at least with regards to the collective West and their impression of Putin. And you also have the $61 billion. And right after that interview took place, like right after that interview happened, you have the Russian shovels and dishwasher nuclear weapons in space, right? You get this story about Russian space nukes. DC freaks out. This is national. This is a huge national security concern. Russia is going to send nuclear weapons into space to shoot down satellites. That happened like a couple of days after the Tucker interview with Putin. Then a few days later, you get the death of Navalny, the main opposition to Putin, someone who Putin cannot even say his name. That's the narrative, right? Putin can't even say Navalny's name. He can't say it. That's how scared he was of Alexei Navalny. He was so scared that he couldn't say his name. Wasn't there a horror movie that had that? I was like thinking Beetlejuice, where you say Beetlejuice 3 times and then Beetlejuice pops up. But I know there was a movie. You guys can help me out in the comments. I could be wrong about this, but there was some sort of horror movie or a thriller where if you like said the person or the demon or the ghost's name, it would pop up. So you never said the name of this demon or this ghost. I don't know, but that's the script, right? Putin was so afraid of Navalny because he was polling at 0.02% that he couldn't say his name. He couldn't say his. That's what Bono was telling us. Navalny, Putin cannot even say Navalny. So everyone in the crowd, say it for us. Navalny, right? That's Bono. So then you have that narrative, Navalny. A couple of days later, you now have this ballerina story. $51. She's been arrested by the FSB, an American ballerina, or they say a dual citizen ballerina. Very few articles say a Russian ballerina. They really don't like to mention that. An American ballerina or a dual citizen ballerina. Then you have to read the rest of the story to figure out, that she's a citizen of Russia. Actually, Emil Kuzmin has a really good video on this, where he highlights stories from the Telegraph, an article from the Telegraph that just talks about this American ballerina or this dual citizen ballerina. Then you have to get all the way down, like to the end of the article, to even get a hint from the Telegraph, the UK Telegraph, that she was actually a Russian citizen. And the Telegraph doesn't tell you that Russia doesn't accept dual citizenship. And so in their eyes, she's a Russian citizen. And I hope I'm right about that. I hope I'm right that Russia doesn't recognize dual citizenship. But if I'm wrong about that, then my apologies. Anyway, you now have this ballerina, $51, put in prison narrative. And yesterday, you had a whole bunch of stories. Oh, and you also had a couple of days ago, and now this has been confirmed, that the Russian traitor, the pilot that flew a helicopter to Ukraine, a traitor to his country, this guy Kuzminov, this guy that flew a helicopter to Ukraine, some of his crew actually got killed by the Ukraine military, and he flew a chopper to Ukraine, and he went over to the other side, a traitor to Russia, a traitor to the Russian military. This guy was hiding out in Spain, from what I gather, under a different name, and he was killed. He was shot. And I didn't want to report on this because I wasn't really sure. There was a lot of different stories and narratives. Maybe this was the guy, maybe this wasn't the guy, because he had a whole different identity, a whole different name. But I think it has now been confirmed that this was Kuzminov, the traitor to the Russian military. So then you have this guy being killed. And then you had yesterday the story about how Putin has broken international law, UN sanctions law, by giving a car to North Korea's Kim Jong-un. This story broke yesterday as well. And this goes against international UN sanctions law. You can't give a car, an automobile, a gift to North Korea. You can't give anything to North Korea according to the sanctions law. So then this article came out yesterday. And then you also had yesterday the article about how Putin gifted UFC fighter Khabib $20 million in Russian real estate after he defeated Conor McGregor at a UFC match. I don't know, like a year or two ago. I forgot when this match took place. But you have this story now coming out there, and this is what Dana White, the founder, the CEO of the UFC, this is what he said. He said that Khabib won the fight, and then right away he got a call from Putin, and then he got $20 million in real estate from Putin, just like that. $20 million in real estate. which if it's true, then, I'm not in favor of something like that if this really did happen, but I don't know. Something tells me that this story from Dana White, this whole narrative is fiction. It's fiction. That's what something tells me. I don't think Putin would make such a bonehead move by giving him $20 million in real estate. I mean, that's not a good look. But anyway, then you have this story come out. So you have all these stories coming out, which are painting Putin and Russia as this dictator, authoritarian regime, right? They send nukes into space. They give $20 million in real estate to UFC fighters. They put ballerinas in prison, and they knock off their main opposition, freedom fighter Navalny. You have all these stories taking place at once, and now you understand why the pressure is on Mike Johnson to put the $61 billion up for a vote. Anyway, I thought I would say that. Let's now move on to some other stories because we have a lot of news to get to. And by the way, Bloomberg, they put out an article yesterday saying that the stalemate is over. War in Ukraine is turning in Putin's favor after months of a stalemate. In this article, Bloomberg says that Russia is now on the offensive. False. Russia is not on the offensive. Russia is in active defense. You haven't seen Russia on the offensive yet, and that's not good for Ukraine and NATO and the NATO proxy. Once Russia goes on the offensive, that is not going to work out well at all for NATO and for Ukraine. But what you're seeing right now is Russia on the defense. This is Russia on the defense, not on the offensive, Bloomberg. And Bloomberg also said falsely that Avdiivka was the first win for Russia, the first territorial gain and win for Russia in months, in a year's time, which is also false because Russia defeated the Ukraine military in the super duper spring, summer, fall counter-offensive that offends me and offends you and offends everybody. And you also had yesterday a Pentagon report which came out, which revealed that Ukraine cannot maintain U.S. weapons. The advanced U.S. weapons that have been given to Ukraine, they can't be maintained by the Ukraine military because the United States and the Biden White House, they rushed out these weapons to Ukraine without any type of plan for maintenance. They were so eager and in such a rush to get all of these advanced weapons to the Ukraine military that they didn't even think about putting a plan in place to maintain all of these advanced weapons. And this report says that this is a disaster that's going to really hit the collective West really, really hard in this conflict. And they actually say that the weapons, they maybe have until October 2024. And then the Ukraine military is going to run into all types of problems because they're just not able to maintain these advanced weapons. This may explain why you don't see the Abrams tanks, or this may be one of the explanations why you don't see the Abrams tanks, because Abrams tanks, they break down a whole lot. And from what I understand, they're very difficult to maintain. And there's been no plan in place to maintain these types of weapons. So that's probably why you don't see the Abrams tanks. And I'm positive this is one of the reasons for the delays in the F16s. By the way, Medvedev, he gave an interview yesterday to Russian media. And Medvedev, speaking about the F16s, he basically said that any F16s that are taking off from anywhere and that attack the Russian military, well, we just may see that as being a participant in this conflict. This is what Medvedev said to Russian media, and I quote, "So if one of those planes takes off from a NATO nation on a Ukrainian mission, what would that be? An attack on Russia? I shall not describe what could happen next," he said. "Such a development may not be even sanctioned by the NATO leadership and the US." So there you have Medvedev's warnings. Medvedev, in the same interview, he actually talked about Kiev and the possibility that the Russian military goes all the way to Kiev. He said, and I quote, "Where should we stop? I don't know," he said in one of the clips, adding that a lot of serious work was lying ahead. Will that be Kiev? Probably. This should be Kiev too. If not now, then sometime later. There are two reasons. Kiev is a Russian city, and the threat to the existence of the Russian Federation emanates from it. Medvedev also mentioned that it's time for Odessa to return home. He's urging the Ukrainian port of Odessa to return home. We in the Russian Federation have long been waiting for Odessa, if only because of its history and what kind of people live there and what language they speak. It is our Russian city, Medvedev claimed. So anyway, that's what Medvedev said in an interview to Russian media yesterday. Let me get back to this report, which talked about how the U.S. advanced weapons cannot be maintained by Ukraine. Washington's Department of Defense had not developed or implemented a plan to maintain any of them, speaking about the advanced weapons, according to the inspectors cited in the reports, who warned that there is nothing to suggest the weaponry could be sustained past October 2024. All of the weapon systems were taken from the U.S.'s military's own stocks without limits under the Presidential Drawdown Authority, according to the reports. If this practice continued, it may require the Defense Department to choose between the readiness of Ukrainian units or the readiness of U.S. Army units. One official told the inspectors the U.S. military-industrial complex has struggled to replace the weapon systems sent to Ukraine due to shortage of parts and the lack of production lines and trained personnel. Maintenance was described in the reports as an afterthought for the Pentagon, whose main focus was to arm Ukraine as quickly as possible. There you have it. The interesting part of this statement from the report, the interesting part is that they are saying that the U.S. now faces a choice. Either we give our weapons to Ukraine or we keep them to protect the United States. Which one is it? And the report says that the U.S. is having a hard time replenishing its stocks because of a lack of parts and a lack of know-how, a lack of people probably. I don't know. I don't know what's going on here, but they're saying they can't refill the shortages. A lack of production lines and trained personnel. That's what the report says. Incredible stuff, huh? You're getting an admission from the Pentagon that the U.S. is being demilitarized at the risk of the U.S.'s own national security. They're giving over their weapons at the expense of the U.S.'s own national security. They're giving it over to Ukraine. Unbelievable stuff. Anyway, let's continue. Let's continue because we got a lot of news going on. How about Iran coming out with a statement yesterday saying that the pipeline explosion, I didn't talk about this in a video, but I think like about a week or two ago, there was an explosion on an Iranian pipeline, an energy pipeline. And Iran came out yesterday and they said that Israel was behind this pipeline explosion. This is according to the Washington Post. The explosion of the gas pipeline was an Israeli plot. Iran oil minister said on Wednesday, as quoted by the Washington Post, the enemy intended to disturb gas services in the provinces and put people's gas distribution at risk. So that is the statement from the Iranian oil minister. Israel has not commented on this allegation and this statement, but there you have it. A possible gas pipeline sabotage, according to the Iranian oil minister. So let's do some more stories before we get to a clown world. I wonder what's going to happen with the ICJ. I think in like a week or two, the ICJ is going to revisit the ruling that they made against Israel and what is happening in Gaza. I wonder what's going to happen there. I know that the U.S. is really putting a lot of pressure on the ICJ to pretty much roll everything back, to take back their decision or to ignore any further decisions that could be placed against Israel. But I know it's coming up soon. I know in like a week or two, the ICJ is going to have to look into whether Israel has been honoring the ruling that they came out with like 3-4 weeks ago. Anyway, we'll see. We will see. The UK the UK has been taking a lot of L's recently, a whole lot of L's. The Sunak government, whole lot of L's going on. Yesterday, we had the news that Russia is tearing up the Barents Sea fisherman agreement. I talked about this in a video maybe a month ago. This was an agreement that was in place from like 1956 between the Soviet Union and the UK, which allowed British fishermen to fish in the Barents Sea. And this agreement every 5 years would come up for renewal, and it's always been renewed until now. And the Russian Duma, they passed legislation saying that they're not going to renew this agreement. And so that means that British fishermen from here on out will not be allowed to fish in the Barents Sea. This is going to hit them very hard. I imagine that this is not good news for British fishermen and for the Sunak government. This is not going to be good news. But there you have it. There was a British nuclear submarine test that failed yesterday. And this British sub test, this nuclear submarine missile test, failed while Defense Minister Grant Shapps was actually watching on. So, yeah, that happened. That happened yesterday as well. And I thought it was Russian weapons that never work. I guess the British weapons also don't work. I don't know. But, you know, the UK is always saying how those Russian weapons, those Russian missiles, they're always failing. They're never working. Those Russian weapons. And here you have a nuclear submarine missile test that went. And then you had the Houthis. They hit a British ship the other day, and the BBC actually has now published photographs of the Rubemar, which was hit by 2 Houthi missiles 2 days ago and has been towed to the port of Djibouti, but is still at risk of sinking. Oh boy, the British Navy is being destroyed by the Houthis. The British Navy is being destroyed by the Houthis. Isn't that the story that we should be talking about? Just like the whole Russian Black Sea Fleet is being destroyed by Ukraine, can we now say that the Houthis are destroying the British Navy? I don't know. But this ship is at risk of sinking. Operation Protective Guardian doesn't seem to be working out so well. And then you had the news that Boris Johnson, according to The Guardian, Boris Johnson is claiming that he accepted Tucker's interview invitation. He is actually claiming that he was going to be paid $1 million from Tucker Carlson in order to be interviewed by Tucker Carlson. And he was ready to explain his side of the story with regards to his appearance in Kiev in March of 2022 and his sabotage of a ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine. Boris is now saying that he was ready to do that interview. He was ready to accept the $1 million from Tucker Carlson. But according to Boris Johnson and according to The Guardian, Boris, he turned down the interview. He decided to back out of the interview. Take a guess why. Just take a wild guess why he decided to back out of the interview with Tucker Carlson. Yes, because of Navalny's death. Because of Navalny's death, Boris called off the interview, and he called off the $1 million, which he claims was going to go to charity. One of Boris Johnson's charities probably is where this money was going to go to. But anyway, that is the excuse that Boris is running with. And finally, before we get to our clown world, I feel like much of this video has been a type of clown world. But one more story before we get to our clown world is Annalena Baerbock from the Munich Security Conference posted on Twitter a photo of herself and Sikorski, the Polish foreign minister, who said, "Thank you, USA," when Nord Stream was blown up. That's Sikorski, and who also was in Kiev in 2014 during the Maidan coup. That's the Sikorski that we're talking about. Super duper neocon. And he is now the Polish foreign minister. Annalena posts a photo of herself, Sikorsky, and I believe the new foreign minister of France. And she says, from Lisbon, together for a strong Europe, from Lisbon to Lugansk. From Lisbon to Lugansk. She's still going with that line, from Lisbon to Lugansk, which I have said in a previous video many, many months ago. I believe I was in Budapest when I talked about from Lisbon to Lugansk. That's when she first made this comment, how the European Union and NATO and the collective West is going to create a free trade area, a transportation corridor from Lisbon all the way to Lugansk. They're going to capture Lugansk, according to Annalena Baerbock. And I said at the time that this sounds like the title of a movie, and it really does sound like the title of a movie. Annalena Baerbock, from Lisbon to Lugansk. The journey of a young German village girl slash trampoline trapeze artist who rises to the top of German politics, from Lisbon to Lugansk, starring Jennifer Lawrence as Annalena Baerbock, Danny DeVito as Olaf Scholz, Kathy Bates as Victoria Nuland, Sean Penn as the Putin, and introducing Volodymyr Zelensky as Zelensky, and making his feature film debut, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. From Lisbon to Lugansk, the story of the rise of Annalena Baerbock and Annalena Baerbock's conquering of the Russian Federation. From Lisbon to Lugansk. Oh, Justin, come with me on this journey from here in Lisbon all the way to Lugansk as we defeat the Putin. Yes, Annalena, I will come with you. I will come with you on this journey from Lisbon to Lugansk. Annalena, I have to tell you, when I first saw you at the WEF Young Leaders meeting, I was enchanted. I was overtaken by your beauty and intoxicated with your perfume. Oh, Justin, that perfume was Zelensky number 5 for women. 20% off. Use the code green t-shirts. From Lisbon to Lugansk, starring Jennifer Lawrence as Annalena Baerbock. Anyway, let's do a clown world. And in this clown world, we have a new Navalny narrative. How did Navalny die? According to a whole lot of publications from the UK. Not only the Mirror, but the Sun, and I even believe the Daily Mail ran with this. But Navalny, he was likely killed by a single punch to the heart used as a signature move by the KGB. Alexei Navalny's cause of death has not yet been released, but sources have said he may have died of a signature technique used by the KGB, a single punch to the heart. It's the signature KGB move, according to the Mirror and the Sun, and a whole bunch of UK publications. Not Novichok. Forget about Novichok. It's now the Russian Vulcan death grip punch to the heart. That did it. Oh boy, it's getting crazier by the day. Stoltenberg, he gave an interview to Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, whatever it's called, and he said that the EU should give more money, the collective West should give more money and more weapons to Project Ukraine in order to defeat Russia and also to honor freedom fighter Navalny. That is what Stoltenberg said the other day to Radio Free Europe, something like that. Anyway, that is the video, everybody. TheDuran.locals.com. We are on Rumble, ODYSEE, BitChute, Telegram, And Twitter X doesn't work. Does not work. How about the other one? Go to the Duran shop. 15% off all t-shirts. No. Nothing. Once upon a time, this is how we communicated. Take care.